So I thought I'd do like a very sort of beginner's guide to my patterns and how I go about them for you. So I'm going to use the sunflower as a demonstration. So this is what you will get when it's sent to you. So there's a colour picture for you to refer to, and then depending on the size, if it's a small one it'll be 4 sheets, if it's a bigger one it could be 6, even bigger than that sometimes. But this is the smaller version, so it will come with 4 sheets of outlined pages. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the last sheet will be a values one if you want to use that. I'll be honest with you, I don't ever print out the colour version because it whops up all the ink, and then it starts to cost a lot of money. So I just refer, I've got an iPad obviously, but if you've got a computer you could just put it on your computer screen and just refer back to it. But it's up to you if you want to print it out. So you print out the these pages, and this is what you'll come out with. So I've printed the 4 pages. In the UK we have a paper size called A4, but the patterns I've done are for letter size in the US. So depending, but it doesn't matter. This actually makes no difference at all. It will print out fine on either. What I then do is, if you see they've got red lines all over the place, and that's just to help you match everything up. Everything will overlap, so you're never going to have a gap as such. What I will say is sometimes you will have to just trim off some of these edges. So if I just show you, find my ruler. So you can see that stops there. So I'm just going to trim that edge right off, just to make it easier when I'm sticking them together. So that will just make a better join. Okay. So we'll start with this one, and I have got, so that is going to go on there. So if you look at the red lines, they will just help you sort of match everything up, and you just find the right spot. I'm going to do it that way because no, I'm not. Just going to cut this edge off so there's not a white border around it. Just go to the bottom of all the printing. And while I'm at it, I'll do this edge as well. I don't need to worry about that edge because that's not going to be stuck to anything. You can use a pair of scissors if you want, or even a sharp knife. This one's not very sharp. Right, so the next sheet is here. So this one that I've cut out is going to go on top of it, and you'll be able to see that you can then line up these red lines. Okay, so you can see that that line is that line, so we can come right the way down here, and then it's just a matter of finding this kind of spot where all of these edges line up together. Just manoeuvre it about, you can see, there we go. And then when I'm on paper, I'll just use a bit of sellotape just to tape it together. So that's taped together. I do need to just run this down here and take this edge off. Okay, so this is my next sheet, and you can see what a big overlap there is, but it just makes it easier to join everything together. So that line is that line, so you can see it's got to go right the way across here, then just find the spot where everything comes together. Right, quite happy with that. Just run a bit of tape down there. And then the last sheet, just plonk it under here. So that line is that line, that line is that line, that line is that line. There we go. And that is now your complete pattern put together. So now my personal preference is using fusibles. I use something called Wonder Web here in the UK, but I think it's Wonder Under in the US. It does need to be sealed down with an iron, but you can, I mean, you can use pins, but that gets quite complicated. You can use glue. I just find Wonder Under is just the cleanest method of doing things, and what I use is the parchment paper method as well. So on top of this I then lay my parchment paper. So this is an old kit, so it's got some lines on it already drawn out, but I don't like to waste anything. Now the only trouble with parchment paper is that sellotape won't stick it down. So I tend to use this, what we call gaffer tape in the UK, but it's like a sort of plasticky type tape, and that works fine. That will hold it all down. There you go, that's all it needs really. So, like I said, I use the parchment paper method, so with fusible. So this is a piece of my fusible. So it comes, I actually buy it on a roll. So it's a big old roll. I get through quite a lot of it, as you can imagine. And all you need to do, let me just plug in my iron so it's ready to go. So you can either cut your fabric and then iron it onto the Wonder Web, or you can cut your Wonder Web and iron it onto your fabric, if you see what I mean. Doesn't make any difference at all. So this is the fabric I'm going to just demonstrate on. Obviously that's going to be the good side that you will see. So just lay it out on here. This is the kind of size piece that I tend to do, maybe a little bit bigger if I'm going to be using more of it on a particular project. I go a bit bigger, but nothing too big, because then you've got the issue of storing it all the time. So you just iron it. For this, I always use my big iron. I've got a little wand, which I'll show you in a minute, that I use when I'm actually doing my fabric collages. But when I'm putting the interlacing on, I use this. Otherwise, it takes forever. You do have to be. It does take a little bit of ironing. It's a very hot iron as well. Now with Bondaweb, you don't have to use any steam or anything with it. It's just a dry iron. But other fusibles are different, so just do what it says on your back here. So basically, that's ready to go. So what I would do is find, let me just get my picture back up. Find the kind of colour that I want to do with this particular bit. So I think that one is upside down. So that is going to match that pretty well. So I just find that on my piece. This is actually on sideways, so it should be that way around. Well, I haven't got room to put it that way around, so I'm going sideways. So it's that piece there. So what I do is I use more parchment paper. I've got to find a pencil, hold on. Use more parchment paper, and a lot of the time it's just the bits that I've cut off of. I reuse this afterwards. And I just put my piece of parchment paper over and just trace the pattern round like that. I will just lay that onto my fabric. You can, if you're not too confident about being able to hold it, the other alternative is, I'll show you in a second. So that's cut out, so that's basically on there. So that'll go on there. So all you do is you peel the backing off. And then you use an iron. Let me go and get my little iron to show you what I use. So this is my little, this is just like a clover iron. I find that really useful. But you can use your big iron, it's not going to make any difference. It's always quite a good idea to lay another piece of parchment paper over the top, just to keep your fabric a bit cleaner. Especially if your iron looks like the bottom of mine. So you just hold it down. Now with Bondaweb, it does adhere, but it will also easily peel off. It will adhere to the next piece of fabric. So if I was to put this piece in here, it would adhere to that, and you won't be able to peel that away. Well, you can, but it's a bit fiddly. Usually you can put a bit of heat on, and a lot of the time it will fray the edges and stuff like that. So that's one way of doing it. Now, let me just find a similar colour. Right, so piece here. So I've drawn that. So it's this one here. So I've drawn both pieces because I'm going to cut out of this fabric. I'm going to cut this whole bit out, and then I would then put an additional bit on the top of that piece of fabric of the different colour. So the other alternative to just holding it on is you can peel this back already. You can see that the fusible is on there. So just peel that back however you want it. And then what you can do is just lay that where you want to be able to cut it. Splodge it down a bit with the iron. That's adhered on there enough that you haven't got to try and hold on to it too much. It won't move. The only thing, I use a pencil, the only thing I would say is just be a little bit careful because it can mark the fabric. As you can see, there's just traces of that coming through still. But that's okay, that'll be fine. And then that will go on there. Just the bit that I iron it down also. Over the top. And then I'll find a piece to go in there, slightly different colour. So I'll use this, it's got a bit of a pattern on it. I mix up my patterns and my planes, solids, so that I've got a bit of each going on all the time. I think the patterns are great. Sometimes they can overwhelm your pieces a bit, so the planes just enhance the patterns, I think, personally, but it's very much up to you. Now the beauty of the parchment paper way of doing things is I can actually see through my pattern there, but if I couldn't see through it, that's not stuck, let me just stick it down a bit more. I can just gently pull it up to see exactly where I want it to go. I know why, it's because I didn't actually plug that in, so it's running out of heat. Let me just use this one. There we go. So just lift that one, see where it's got to go. So that's basically fitting through there. So with the bonder web, that piece, it will be very difficult to take off now. Other fusibles, I think it's easier, but they tend to be a bit thicker, and I just really like the thinness of the bonder web. It just so easy to sew on and stuff. But that's entirely up to you. So that's the basic how you get started. Okay, so hopefully this little video will just be a start. And then obviously you just build it up, build it up, build it up. Once the whole thing is all together, you should be able to just peel it as one piece of the parchment paper. And then put your batting on and then do your sewing. You don't want to do sewing, you don't have to do sewing. You can just put a protective layer over the top of it, you know, Mod Podge or fabric varnish sort of thing. That's entirely up to you. But hopefully this just got you started, and how to kind of use the patterns. Okay then, so bye bye.